So you're playing with house money right now, which is another reason why it was very, very wise of them to bring in somebody like a Kirk Cousins who knows the situation.
Las Vegas Raiders are signing Kirk Cousins to play quarterback out in Vegas, where Fernando Mendoza is expected to be the #1 pick. There's a connection between the Raiders head coach Clint Kubiak and Kirk Cousins. They spent 3 seasons together.
What's up, baby?
Kirk Cousins signs a 5-year, $172 million deal with the Raiders.
Stephen A. reacts to Kirk Cousins signing with the Raiders, and the reason this hits so hard is simple. This is not just about one veteran quarterback changing teams. This is about what the Raiders are admitting without saying it out loud. They are telling the entire league that even if they believe Fernando Mendoza is the future, they do not want that future thrown into the fire too early. And when Stephen A. starts talking about house money and zero expectations, that is where the conversation stops being polite and starts getting real.
Here's a little ditty. The Raiders are going to choose this kid first overall.
The move itself sounds clean on the surface. Kirk Cousins comes in, brings experience, brings maturity, brings professionalism, and gives the Raiders a quarterback who can start right away while a young prospect learns the speed of the NFL. That part makes sense. That part actually sounds smart. But the reason people are reacting so strongly is because this is the Raiders we are talking about. This is not some stable, patient, polished organization that everyone automatically trusts to bring along a rookie the right way. This is a franchise that has spent years searching for answers, changing directions, and trying to convince people that the next plan is finally the right one. So when Stephen A. hears this, he is not just reacting to a signing. He is reacting to what this signing says about the Raiders' fear, their urgency, and their reality.
That Kirk Cousins has had his contract fully guaranteed. It will move him into second all-time in money made as an NFL player, behind only, I think at this point in time, Aaron Rodgers, and just ahead of Tom Brady.
Here's the part nobody is talking about. Kirk Cousins is not just a bridge quarterback in this story. He is a shield. He is there to absorb the early heat, take the hits, handle the bad headlines, and protect the rookie from being judged too fast. That matters in a division like the AFC West. You are staring at established quarterbacks, established coaching staffs, and teams that are not in the mood to be patient with anybody. If you throw a rookie out there too soon and he struggles, people will not say he needs time. They will say he cannot play. That is how the league works now, and that is exactly why Stephen A. sounded like he actually respected this move more than people expected. What made the first take discussion work is that Adam Schefter laid out the practical side, and Stephen A. came in with the emotional truth behind it. Schefter basically said this is the ideal situation because the Raiders get a veteran who already knows the system and already has a relationship with the coaching staff. That is important because there is no awkward adjustment period. Cousins is not walking into a completely foreign setup. There is familiarity, structure, and immediate functionality. Then Stephen A. took it a step further and said what a lot of people were thinking. The Raiders are not supposed to win this division anyway, so why put all the pressure on the kid? That is the harsh reality, but it is also the smartest reality.
A longtime veteran to be in the room with this kid. And my initial thought is, he sounds like Kirk Cousins, and he comes across a little bit like Kirk Cousins.
This is where it gets dangerous, because once you admit the Raiders are the clear 4th team in the division on paper, you are also admitting that this whole season is less about winning and more about optics. That sounds harsh, but it is true. If you are not expected to win the division, not expected to make a deep run, and not expected to immediately threaten the top teams, then every move is suddenly about messaging. You bring in Kirk Cousins to signal professionalism. You keep the rookie on the bench to signal patience. You talk about long-term growth to signal hope. And before you know it, a season that should be about football becomes a season about interpretation. That is where organizations can get in trouble, because fans hear development and owners hear results, and those two things do not always move at the same speed. Stephen A. also made another strong point that cannot be ignored. He basically said Kirk Cousins is the kind of adult you want in the room. That is not a throwaway compliment. In sports, especially at quarterback, that label means everything. It means you trust the guy to keep the locker room calm when things go wrong. It means you trust him not to throw teammates under the bus. It means when the rookie is watching film, asking questions, or trying to understand what leadership looks like, he has a real example sitting right in front of him. That kind of mentorship is not a small thing. It can literally shape the next 5 years of a franchise if the rookie is good enough to absorb it.
What's up, baby?
Kirk Cousins signs a 5-year, $172 million deal with the Raiders. In reality, it's a 1-year, $20 million, fully guaranteed deal that also combines a club option for 2 years at $80 million.
And let's be honest, that is probably the best part of this move. Not the stat line Kirk Cousins might put up, not whether he wins 8 games or 9, not whether he throws for a certain number of yards. The best part is that he lowers the emotional temperature in the building. The second a rookie quarterback gets drafted high, people act like he is supposed to save the franchise overnight. That is not development. That is panic disguised as optimism. The Raiders needed somebody who could stand in front of that storm and say, "I'll take the first wave." Cousins can do that. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Kirk Cousins was also indirectly talking about organizational maturity. The Raiders have often been a franchise associated with noise, headlines, instability, and overreaction. This move says they are at least trying to behave like a team that understands timing. And timing matters. In the NFL, the difference between a rookie starting week 1 and starting week 9 can be the difference between confidence and damage. Some young quarterbacks need to play right away. Others need to breathe, study, and build. The biggest mistake teams make is assuming every talented prospect develops the same way. They don't.
Kirk Cousins has had an unbelievable career, but no, not more so than as a businessman in the NFL. Now he winds up with the Raiders, where he's reunited with head coach Clint Kubiak, whom he worked with for 3 years.
Now this is also where the story gets more interesting from a bigger sports perspective. Because whether you're talking NFL or NBA, the veteran-rookie dynamic has become one of the most important storylines in all of sports. We see it in basketball all the time. A franchise drafts a young star, then scrambles to put experienced voices around him so he doesn't drown in expectations. Sometimes it works beautifully. Sometimes the veteran becomes a mentor. Sometimes the rookie learns what professionalism looks like. But sometimes the veteran feels threatened, the rookie gets impatient, and the whole thing becomes awkward. That is why this Raiders setup has to be handled carefully. The plan sounds smart in April. It has to stay smart in October. And that is where Stephen A's tone really matters. He was not celebrating the Raiders like they had suddenly become contenders. He was saying they're in a decent situation because expectations are low and growth is the real objective. That is a much more honest frame. Too many shows try to sell every move as a major leap. This did not feel like that. This felt more like, look, they're still not close to the top teams, but at least this move makes sense. Honestly, that kind of realism is refreshing. Sometimes the smartest move a bad team can make is not the flashy one, it's the stabilizing one.
They did a contract reconfiguration back at the end of the season to ensure that he would be released with every bit of his money due to him.
Let's also talk about Kirk Cousins himself, because he is interesting in this conversation. He is one of those quarterbacks who has spent years being evaluated through extremes. If he plays well, people say he is underrated. If he struggles, people say he was never that guy. But in a setup like this, he actually fits better than a more dramatic personality would. You do not need noise. You do not need somebody treating the bridge role like an insult. You need someone who understands where he is, what the job is, and why the franchise brought him in. That level of self-awareness is valuable. It keeps the room from splitting into camps. This is where it gets dangerous, because the second Cousins starts playing decently, the Raiders could face the classic trap. If he is winning just enough, keeping the team respectable and avoiding disaster, when do you make the switch? That question can tear a season apart. If you turn too early, you risk damaging a veteran relationship and exposing the rookie before he is ready. If you wait too long, fans start asking why the future is sitting on the bench while a limited ceiling team plays it safe. Coaches say they want patience until the pressure starts. Then patience becomes a luxury. That tension is coming, and everybody knows it.
But Kirk Cousins did this interesting thing where he wasn't jumping at the first opportunity that presented itself. Now, we know that he wasn't at the top of everyone's list to go be their starter, so let's be clear about.
Stephen A. hinted at that when he talked about the Raiders not needing to worry about losses as much as improvement. In theory, that sounds perfect. In reality, it is harder than it sounds. Fans do not watch games saying, well, at least our developmental timeline remains intact. They react emotionally. They want to see the future. They want hope on the field. And if the rookie is the symbol of that hope, every incomplete pass from the veteran becomes a reason to start chanting for change. That is not just football pressure. That is franchise pressure. It builds quietly until it explodes. At the same time, there is something undeniably smart about keeping a young quarterback out of immediate line of fire in a division that punishes mistakes. The AFC West is not a friendly classroom. It is a pressure cooker. Defenses adjust quickly. Pass rushers close windows fast. Road games feel heavy. And if your rookie gets rattled early, those scars can linger. People love the idea of trial by fire until the player starts seeing ghosts in the pocket. Then, suddenly, everybody says the organization failed him. That is why bridge plans exist in the first place. They are not glamorous, but they can save careers. Here's the part nobody is talking about. The Raiders are also trying to build a culture of credibility here. It is not enough to draft a quarterback. You have to show him that the building is functional. You have to show him that the offense has structure, that communication is clean, and that there is an actual plan from week to week. A veteran quarterback can reinforce that. He can help the rookie understand what a real game week looks like, how meetings should feel, how adjustments are made, and how to keep confidence without getting reckless. That stuff never trends on social media, but it matters as much as arm talent. And from a content perspective, this is exactly why the First Take segment had juice. It was bigger than one move. It touched pressure, mentorship, roster building, divisional hierarchy, and expectation management all at once. It is the same reason NBA discussions get so heated when people talk about whether a young star needs a veteran point guard, a defensive anchor, or a stabilizing coach. In every sport, talent gets all the headlines, but structure decides how much of that talent survives. The Raiders are finally acting like structure matters. That alone is worth discussing. I also think Stephen A. was basically saying something fans do not always want to hear. There is freedom in being overlooked. That sounds strange, but it is true. If nobody expects the Raiders to win the division, then every competitive game becomes evidence of progress instead of a referendum on failure. That is healthy for a rebuilding team. It gives the coaching staff room to teach, it gives the rookie room to watch, it gives the veteran room to operate without being treated like the final answer. That can create a surprisingly stable environment, and for the Raiders, stability is half the battle. But make no mistake, this will only look smart if the rookie eventually becomes the guy. That is the larger legacy angle hanging over everything. Bridge quarterbacks are remembered in one of two ways. Either they are respected as the professional who held things together until the future arrived, or they are remembered as the placeholder who delayed the inevitable. There is no in-between. Kirk Cousins is stepping into that space now, and if Fernando Mendoza develops into a franchise quarterback, people will look back and say this signing helped save his early career. If he struggles later, people will say the Raiders still didn't know what they were doing. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They think sitting means failing. It doesn't. Some of the smartest careers begin with observation, learning protections, understanding how defenses disguise coverages, seeing how veterans respond to losses, watching how they prepare after a bad game instead of just a good one. If Mendoza handles this the right way, he can gain a year's worth of insight without taking the full punishment of starting too early. That is a gift if he is mature enough to treat it like one. And judging by how people on the segment were talking about his character, that seems to be part of the appeal. There is also an emotional side to this that makes the story hit harder. Sports fans love the shiny new thing. They want the rookie. They want the mystery box. They want the possibility of greatness right away. A veteran bridge quarterback is the opposite of exciting on the surface. He is the reminder that growth takes time. He is the adult answer in a world that craves instant payoff. That is why these moves get mixed reactions. One side sees caution, the other sees wisdom. The truth usually depends on whether the organization stays committed when the noise starts. And the noise will start. If the Raiders lose 2 straight, people will demand the rookie. If Cousins throws a bad interception in the fourth quarter, people will say the future should already be playing. If the rookie shines in preseason, people will act like the decision is obvious. That is why the coach has to be clear from day one. Not vague, not dramatic, clear. Is this Kirk's team for now? Is the rookie truly on a development track? What milestones matter? Because if the messaging gets messy, the whole locker room starts reading between the lines. So now the bigger question becomes simple, and it is the one that will define the entire season. Did the Raiders bring in Kirk Cousins because they finally understand development, or did they bring him in because they are scared to fully commit to the future? Those are not the same thing. One is strategic patience, the other is organizational hesitation. And over the course of the season, we're going to find out which one this really is.